guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today, gonna hear a story titled "Discovered You Know What Videos of My Wife with Her Affair Partner. Now I can't get the images out of my mind." And guys, this story is about a typical guy who's married to his wife for like 10 years. He has a kid with her. He thinks everything in their marriage is pretty darn good, except for one little area. She's not as freaky in the bedroom as he'd like. And you're going to see here as he explains his story that even though, that she's not doing all the creative adventure stuff in the sack that he wants, other than that, everything seems good. However, as time goes on, he started noticing a change in her behavior. He noticed that she started talking about she doesn't seem like the free, independent woman she once was. And other things like that. And he started noticing she started working out, losing weight, growing her hair out, dressing better, all these things that she wasn't doing beforehand. And lo and behold, one day he finds out that guess what? She's having an affair. What I tell you guys always about red flags and paying attention to changes in behavior? Finds out she's having an affair, and even worse yet, he installs some spy software on her phone and laptop and everything, and he unfortunately, well, depending on how you look at it, he finds evidence of this affair and sees videos. And not only is she cheating, but she's also doing all the freaky stuff that he wanted to do with her, his wife, with her lover, with her affair partner, right? So you're going to see here, guys, how this whole thing unravels with him confronting her and the affair partner and how it all goes out. But as I said before, guys, a lot of stories like this, there's many important lessons, okay? There's an important lesson as an example of how, I say this all the time, most women, absolutely most with a capital M, most women settle. The guys they marry. They don't marry the guy that's their top choice by any means. The guys that were their top choices are the guys they were having fun with in their prime, in their late teens and 20s, okay? The bad boys, or the trying to get the high value guys, because, pretty much nowadays when most women feel entitled to a top guy, mathematically it's impossible because these guys are the top few percentage of the guys that are out there. The guys have a lot of the sixes and make a lot of money and have the status and all that. So eventually they realize that they can't get those guys, or those type of guys are not going to settle down and be the husband with the white picket fence and out in the suburbs and all that. They realize their biological clock is ticking. They're freaking out because they don't want to be 30 or 30 plus without having a ring on their finger or close to walking down the aisle. So they settle. And the guy they settle with, he often thinks that, hey, I finally got this hot girl. The hot girls are finally paying attention to me. I won. Wrong. I tell you all the time, he didn't win. She settled. She could pick out a nice guy, a marriage material guy a mile away. And the guys they settle with, in no way, shape, or form do they treat them the same as the guys they really want. They don't treat them the same. They don't look at them the same. And they most certainly do not give them all the action in the bedroom that they would give the guys they really want. Because the guys they really want, the guys they want to obviously get their validation and get them, they pretty much will do anything they want. But the nice guys, the guys they settle with, bare minimum, right? And you're going to see that. So that's something to always remember. Also, pay attention to red flags. I tell you all the time, for you guys to do relationships or marriage, always pay attention to red flags, changes in behavior, things don't seem right. Listen to your gut. Okay, you don't want to be in a situation like any of these guys I do stories about. Anyhow, that being said, I'm going to jump into the article, or the story. So it starts off, "My wife of 10 years and I had a very good married life together, or so I thought. No financial worries, a terrific 4-year-old son, and a fairly good you-know-what life. With the exception that I often expressed a desire to try new things." And he says in parentheses, let's see, how can I put this that YouTube won't flag me? "Backdoor fun, so to speak. Among other things, less naughty. And get more creative overall as a couple. She said she was not interested in being kinky and that she liked things the way they were." Remember that line there. She doesn't like anything kinky, wants to keep things as they are. Remember, bare minimum in the bedroom. She also said she felt that different you-know-what positions and you-know-what talk in bed also made her feel uncomfortable and WHORISH. "I decided to pick my battles and let it slide since every other part of our marriage was pretty great." So pretty much his marriage is a lot like a good friendship, essentially, And again, she wasn't comfortable, didn't want to do that type of stuff. What was she like before they got married? What was she like when they were dating? Probably not much different, but I'd like to know what she was like before she was with him. "We were attentive and affectionate with each other and had date nights. remembered important anniversaries, etc. But with the loss of one of her beloved aunts and increased work responsibilities, she's suddenly begun wondering if maybe she's lost her identity and independence somewhere over the years while becoming a mom and a career woman. So back to the independent woman thing. Well, if she's a career woman and she's working, that is in a sense she's independent, and she's making her money and all that. But losing her independence as a mom. What's the big promotion these days? The strong, independent woman. I told her I was sorry she felt that way and asked her if I could help her find herself, feel better, etc. Well, that's a typical nice guy thing to say. He's already apologizing for something he didn't do. And obviously he's trying to be a good guy to her, which I get that. But what happens to nice guys? They finish last. Her reply was that someone as confident as I was couldn't possibly understand what she was going through. Still, I endeavored to help her where I could, but to no avail. So this guy sounds like a good guy, right? And he's trying to be helpful to her. All these stories you hear, most of these stories, let me rephrase it, you hear about, these guys are pretty darn good to their ladies, whether it's their fiancés, girlfriends, wives. And, I've said this before, in a perfect world, you would think, in a perfect world, you could treat the one that you're with, that you love and you care about, treat them really well, and that it would be reciprocated. You would get that respect, you'd get that love, and it'd be shown to you in so many different levels. Like this guy wants to get very adventurous and freaky in the bedroom, you think that'd be reciprocated. But in real life, it doesn't work that way. And so many times, kindness is mistaken and perceived as weakness. It's ridiculous, but it's how it is. This is why I tell you guys, no matter how much you want to, you can't put them on a pedestal. You can't treat them like the queen. You can't be this nice guy all the time. I'm not saying you go around being a jerk, but you certainly don't. You got to make them realize that you can walk away at any time, that you are a catch, and that you have options. And if they push you too far, they disrespect you, things like that, you're out of there. That's why it's so important for guys. If you're going to do relationships and marriage, you got to, if you were a catch beforehand, you were a prize beforehand, a lot of guys, they get married and they just let themselves go. They let themselves go physically. They let themselves go in terms of like goals and being the type of guy they were beforehand. They stop being a catch. And is any wonder, and I'm not justifying it, but is there any wonder a lot of times the wives end up cheating, okay? When guys when they get married, they remain a catch. They're looking good. They're taking care of themselves, staying in good shape. They have a life. They got friends. They do things that for themselves. They're still chasing after goals and ambitions. Their women know that even though, yeah, sure, obviously the divorce courts are on their side, still the guy can pick up and replace their ass like that if they wanted to. Yeah, you take the hit financially, but if the guy's doing so well, he may not give a shit at some point if the marriage is going bad. And there's a lot of women that are terrified of being alone. So guys got to take care of themselves. But it's crazy that, again, like I said before, today's world, most guys, they try to be good guys, and this type of shit happens. But we know it's promoted. We know darn well it's so promoted nowadays. It's crazy. Anyhow, I'm starting to ramble a little bit. Then, 23 months ago, I discovered my wife was cheating on me. She'd been acting unusually distant and started bathing instead of showering so she could text on her phone. And he says in parentheses, she said it was to a girlfriend who needed her support. That is one of the most common things I hear all the time. When all of a sudden, the girlfriend or the wife or whatever starts acting distant, she's always on the phone, it's always because some friend of hers is going through some kind of emotional trauma, some problem, something she's going through, and she's got to be there for her. She's got to pick up at a moment's notice and take off and go be with that friend. That's one of the most common excuses. It's crazy. So if you ever hear that, pay attention. She also started working out, losing weight, new haircut, new sexier clothes, etc. Plenty of red flags and enough to convince me to investigate. Good he trusted his gut and paid attention to that. Notice that she wasn't working out, losing weight, dressing better, new haircut, all that beforehand. Why wasn't she doing that before? Well, I know the answer to that, because guess what? She didn't value him as much as before, but now she's having an affair and she wants to please the guy that she's hooking up with, so she's willing to do all that. Like I told you, they're not going to look at you the same, they're not going to treat you the same, and they certainly aren't going to, in the bedroom the same. A lot of you guys may not like hearing what I'm saying, but I'm keeping it real and being honest here. He says, She said that she needed to decompress from being a working mom and was going to visit an old girlfriend. I helped her pack and left a love note in her suitcase to let her know I'd miss her and loved her. More nice guy shit. He knows something's going on, but he's still doing this nice guy shit. Maybe he's doing it to throw her off so she doesn't suspect that he knows something's going on. Who knows? But again, it's unfortunate that you can't do this stuff to someone you deeply care about, but look how things are. How many guys are watching this and know exactly what I'm talking about? I hope that I was imagining things and was mistaken. I couldn't believe that she would betray me that way. Nonetheless, I checked her mileage on her car and noticed a huge discrepancy in the miles that she needed to get to and from her girlfriend's house. This was troubling since she told me that she had driven straight there and that she and the girlfriend had gone nowhere but in the friend's car. With this revelation, I decided to place a keylogger on her laptop. What I discovered left me crippled and devastated. I discovered that she had met an old boyfriend on Facebook a few months prior, quickly entered the affair fog, moving on to physical one very quickly. I also was able to access her cell phone when she was in the shower one day and send copies to myself of conversations with her lover. God, that's gotta hurt. God, he's married with her all this time. He obviously truly loves her and cares about her, and he finds this out and has to see all this stuff, and it gets worse, guys. She evidently had delighted in obliging him in his favorite fantasies, foremost among these, the backdoor action. Evidently, his wife wasn't interested in that, and my wife wanted badly to fill that void for him. No pun intended. As a means of keeping him interested and excited, she had sent him videos of herself pleasuring herself in the back door, progressing later into her giving him permission to actually make videos of that backdoor stuff encounters. I discovered some of them that he had sent her, along with messages discussing their plans for the next meetup during my search. So let's review. The story starts out with him talking about how everything's great in their marriage except in the bedroom. That it's boring. Okay, she doesn't want to do different positions. She certainly doesn't want to try all the freaky stuff that he just mentioned here. However, he then finds physical proof in the videos, in the conversations of her and him, that she's doing all this stuff that he wanted to do the most with the affair partner. Right? Perfect example. They settle, and you get the bare minimum when they settle. But the guy they really want, the guy whose validation they're craving, the one they want to catch, sky can be the limit. And this guy's thinking, I do everything right. I treat her well. I pay the bills. I'm a great father. I'm supportive. Why am I not getting this stuff? Well, that's a cold dose of reality. Each time he would follow up and send her an MP3 of some love song he said reminded him of her, following by how much he cared about her and how great the you-know-what was and how nice her ass was, etc. What strangely hurt me initially was how readily she was willing to try new things with him, with this idiot. Gone was the reluctant, rather you-know-what conservative wife I had known. This creature was very sexual, submissive, and willing to try anything, and he says yes, just about anything that she would to please him, even the dreaded you-know-what sex. Yeah, he can't believe this. Nothing shocks me anymore after being on this planet for 43 years, and obviously all these stories and articles and all my life experiences and the things I hear about other people. But to a lot of guys, they can't believe this until this stuff happens to them. Initially, she denied everything. Told me how angry she was I was accusing of her and how I was being paranoid. That always happens. The guy has proof, he confronts, and all of a sudden he's the bad guy, and it says, oh, you're paranoid, you're making this up, you're insecure. All these insults start coming at the guy until literally the guy has to show physical proof. And even then sometimes the guy's gaslighted and she blames him for it. So I showed her my evidence. She was plainly stunned and shaken. Her face turned ashen. She began to sob and mumble something about how she was so sorry and that the affair was something that just happened. How does it just happen? How do all those videos just happen? How does them getting together, meeting through Facebook just happen? How does all her working out over a period of time, losing the weight, changing her hair, all this stuff just happen? It's like there's this book where all these lines are preserved for women to use in these scenarios. Like if he says this, use this line. If he does this, use this excuse. Do this. I'll admit I was angry, enraged even. I verbally let her have it and called her every hurtful thing I could think of. Then, exhausted, I just sat down on the ground and wept. I had plenty of chances to cheat over the years and never took the bait. I simply loved her too much and would have never risked the good thing we had. For her, betrayal was easy, but I was also sure from reading her affair partner's text that he was plainly using her to fill the void in his own marital sex life. Yeah, this is a situation where it's very common. The guys, they had plenty of opportunities to cheat. They could have, but they didn't want to do that because they loved and cared about their wives, their children. They didn't want to script the family. But you hear these stories, and the wives are like, they got no problem with it. My wife quickly responded with a resounding no to that. My wife quickly responded with a resounding no to that idea. She was convinced that he loved her, would give it all up for her, eventually for her, and would stand by her even now. So I challenged her to call him up and put him on the speakerphone, and while acting like it was just another casual call, point blank confirmed her belief by asking him if he truly was in love with her, and would come get her right now because things had gone south and had discovered the affair. So she's convinced that this guy's in love with her. Well, she's in for a surprise. As expected, the coward went immediately into damage control. He told her that he did care about her, but that he felt uncomfortable with the words "in love." He said that what they had was a good while it lasted, but it would be best if they got back to focusing on their own marriages. Ooh, that's a slap in the face to her. He followed up with a kind of stuttered, "I'm sorry," and begged her not to tell me who or where he was. Though still beyond angry, I could help but almost feel sorry for my wife when I saw the look of total despair and abandonment on her face from realizing that this man had told her anything to get her to become his personal WHORE. I wouldn't feel bad for her. After all that, and obviously what he saw and read, Obviously he's hurt and his emotions are like a freaking roller coaster. I totally get that, but I wouldn't feel bad for her. No way. And already you can start to see how this guy's obviously a typical nice guy. It's obvious on so many ways, but like typical nice guys, they're going to, in a situation like this, they'll be upset and angry with the wife or the girlfriend or the fiance, but they'll be more angry and put more of the blame on the dude. Now, don't get me wrong, this guy is in the wrong on many reasons you're going to see here, but still, this is his wife, what she did to him, and he's feeling bad for her. You can kind of probably see how this is going to go. He says, worse, I think, was that she knew that she had done so much in such a willing way. And even worse still was the fact that I had seen exactly how she'd been with him, in the you-know-what, and also had heard the things she said during her encounters, including the loving remarks that hurt me to my core. So it wasn't just hooking up. Also, she obviously was in love with him. So this guy has to deal with the fact that, number one, she was cheating on him. Number two, she'd been cheating on him for a while. Number three, she was doing all the stuff that he wanted to do with her, but she wouldn't do with him because she felt uncomfortable and didn't want him to see her as being WHORSH. And the fact that she's in love with this guy. This really sucks. Before he hung up on her, I picked up the other line and told him to call me back on my cell to talk. That if he didn't, I would immediately share all I had at my disposal with every friend, coworker, and family member that he had. In short, I would expose him entirely. He called, he was frantic, obviously worried, and he begged me to reconsider to think of his wife and child. So he didn't care about his wife and child beforehand, but once he's caught, he's there on the phone begging and pleading to this guy about it. This guy is a complete coward, okay? I said this before, guys. I have a code, and I think guys should have a code. And guys should not knowingly get involved with another man's girl, whether it's his girlfriend, fiance, or worse yet, wife. That is not cool on so many levels. But there are plenty of guys that do that and figure that, hey, you know what, tough shit. The guy was weak, so he deserves it. No. I don't care how weak the guy is. You should never do that to another man. But there are guys out there that will do that. In that desperate moment, I asked him several questions about the affair. He was so afraid and shaken that he willingly verified other things that I had suspected but not had actual proof on. As example, that hotel visits, dates, number of times they met for sex, etc. Never once suspecting that the whole time I was recording him with an app on my phone. Very smart. For a moment, I could tell he thought I'd relax a bit and maybe just decide to move on. But I assured him that I understood that my wife had betrayed me. that it was not all his fault. Nevertheless, the fact remained that he had interfered in my marriage. He initiated the contact, he started the affair in motion, and was more in control of his emotions. In short, he fully knew what he was doing. He used and manipulated my wife for his own you-know-what defects at home. Yes, she had been emotional and stupid, but he had been calculating, and when he came to that crossroad of decisions, he had chosen to interject himself into my marriage, my life. And for that, there will be no reconsideration, no mercy from me to him. Sounds like Cobra Kai. Strike first, strike hard, no mercy. I'm a Karate Kid fan. Yeah, so, okay, yes, this guy did all these things, but guess what? So did his wife. You're not saying that he's not saying his wife wasn't calculating, that she wasn't manipulative, she didn't go along with these things. She's an adult. So he's already, you can see, painting the picture that the wife, in a way, was the victim. And I believe that's because it's easy for him to think that this guy was the grand master that got her to do all this stuff, and therefore, because otherwise it's more hurtful for him to think that she would just so easily stray and do all these things. So he's going to put more of the blame on the guy. Now, the guy had his hand in this, absolutely. Okay, and a little payback is certainly warranted. But the fact that he's making this out to be, and you can see this just by me reading it, that's more the guy's fault than his wife? No. But that's how a lot of these guys think. I told him that I would utterly destroy him. I would blow up his life. And so, in time, I did. Suffice to say that when it was over, everyone in his life knew what a waste of human flesh he was. In seeking justice, and yes, revenge too, I notified his wife. She experienced the same devastation I had. The next day, when her head was clear, she sent me the rest of his videos that she discovered, copies of texts, etc., and I sent her what I had. So if it wasn't bad enough, he had to get more videos and more footage of what was going on. My curiosity and hunger to learn everything I could about what happened to me prevailed over the sickened feelings I had about watching my wife's you-know-what videos. The videos were like watching a different person. She was literally begging him to penetrate her back there, allowing him to do things all over her face, and then perform for the camera by telling him how good he tasted, etc. When I discussed it with her, she claimed she had forgotten acting like that and felt like she had been someone else during the filming. Oh, it wasn't me. That wasn't me who did it. That was the other me. Okay, so you can't be mad at me. That's not me. That was the other me. I can just imagine that conversation. She said, and the guy promised to delete them after viewing them once, and thought the video had been destroyed on his end. I asked her why she'd never been like that with me. And she said it was because, now listen to this. She was never like that with him because, in her view, she says, she had enjoyed our normal sex with each other and the intimacy more, and had done all the crazy stuff, as she called it, because she just wanted so badly to please him more than his wife, and that the prospect/challenge of it excited something inside of her more than she ever expected it to. Translation, she was being competitive. She was competing to get this guy for her to come to her, no pun intended. She was competing for him to leave his wife and be with her. Okay, what I've told you about women being competitive with other women. Okay, when you got women competing over you, you're gonna win. Okay, because if they both really like you, you're in a good place to be. She was competing with his wife for his attention and love. And not to mention the fact, like you can see here, she's completely BSing him. Well, she's not BSing him, she's being honest. This guy was the nice guy she settled for, so the normal stuff, as she called it, that was just enough for her. But he didn't excite her in the way that this guy did. The challenge. Women love challenges. I'm not justifying this action, I'm just telling you how it is, guys. She admitted to being ashamed, embarrassed, and regretful. She begged me not to leave her and to work on our marriage. Well, maybe she had thought about working on the marriage before all this happened. If she was that unhappy, no, it was much easier to just go out and have the affair. And the only reason she's sorry, the only reason she's begging for this guy to stay is because the guy that she's in love with, who she's cheating with, he kicked her to the curb. He's not interested in having anything with her. She was purely for hooking up, nothing more. She's got nothing left. That's why she wants to stay with this guy, and she's begging. We sought counseling. Yeah, how'd that work out for you? I didn't want to throw years of building a life together away without trying. In the years since, she has worked very hard to make our marriage her top priority. She constantly does whatever it takes to be transparent and account for her time. She knows that I even now sometimes need her to drop everything and reassure me when something triggers the movies in my head. So he's staying with her. I'm not surprised. After reading a little bit of this story initially, because I always read these beforehand, I could tell this is a typical nice guy. Now, yeah, sure, he built a life with her, and they have a kid together, but do you think this guy's ever going to get these images out of his head? Do you think every time that she picks up the phone or takes a bath, he's not going to be thinking about what's going on? That's no way to live. Do you think after this that he's getting the same kind of treatment in the bed that the other guy was? Well, you're going to see in a second here. To no surprise, you're going to be able to see what happens here. He says, however, as much as I've forgiven her and deeply love this woman, I will never forget those videos and how she treated him in them. How she gave him more of herself in the you-know-what department to him than to me. She says she's depressed over not being able to recreate the same level of intense you-know-what play in our marriage for us. She claims it was because the affair was new, exciting, forbidden fruit type of relationship, and what we have is much deeper and satisfying, but less exciting, because we are not novel to each other. So after all that, you'd think that he would be then getting whatever, you would think that she would be doing whatever it took to get him to stay, including all the freaky fun stuff he wanted in the bedroom. Nope. He's not getting any of it. And she knows she doesn't have to do that because she's with the typical nice guy that's going to basically go to counseling and let it go. And this is what happens. And this shows, and pretty much she got away with this scot-free. So do you think that she's going to never do this again? Once a cheater, always a cheater. It may take 10 years, but it could happen again. I mean, this guy's probably a good guy, don't get me wrong, but this guy is just clueless. And he's never going to have this out of his head. I mean, that sucks. But a lot of people figure, oh, we're going to stay in it for the kids. You think that their marriage, that what he described as a happy marriage, supposedly beforehand, is the same after this? No. She says she's sorry for that, and sorry I feel that her affair partner was treated better in bed than I was, or even now. She's not sorry. She doesn't feel it because she settled for you, because you were the Mr. Nice Guy that she settled for. I hate to break it, but to you, dude, but that's how it is. What she doesn't seem to grasp is that for most men, I think that the physical love is huge in our relationship with our lover and wives. And when another male is given more access to our wives' sexual stuff, it can be nearly insurmountable, and that way will always leave us feeling like we are number two. Since number one, the affair partner, was given so much more over the top sex. Especially if, as she says, nothing like it can be recreated for me. Right, exactly. Again, back to the perfect world. In a perfect world, the guy treats the woman like the queen. He shows her, not only says how much he loves her and cares about her, but he shows her through his actions, and she reciprocates on all areas. But in reality, unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. Does that mean that all situations are like this? No. But a vast majority are. And you do enough stories like this, guys, you can see a pattern here. So, it's back to the vanilla sex play like it was before, with all her love and affection, or at least that's her take on it. She has done such a good job of convincing this guy. I mean, it's a shame. He'll learn the hard way again. After all that, he's still back to the same boring, unadventurous stuff in the bedroom that he didn't want to have, but the other guy got all the freaky fun stuff. And obviously she enjoys it, but he doesn't do it for her in that department. Guys, what have I told you guys about marriage? Even if it starts off great and hot and heavy, eventually it withers. It's not the same after a while. Perfect example. But I don't think it was ever crazy and hot and heavy beforehand when he started with her. I seriously doubt that. My take, it sucks to be a cuck. My question is this: how on earth am I ever to let these images out of my head? You're not going to get the images out of your head. The only way you're going to get them out of your head is if you would have ended it with her and moved on. But you're not going to get them out of your head. And you're going to be thinking about that every single time that you see her texting or off somewhere. You're going to be remembering all this. And even when you're hooking up with her, you're going to be thinking about what you're not getting and that other dude got. If that sounds like a pleasurable way to live, keep on doing what you're doing. On the one hand, I'm glad I watched the videos because my imagination would have been far worse. That's bullshit. At least I know what her lover was. He was not an Adonis, but a portly guy and an awful lover. Very little foreplay and a small package. Well, he may be portly, he may be a small package, but he was doing way more with your wife than you ever did, so, it is what it is, dude. Nonetheless, the images persist, though not as often as they did in the beginning. Any suggestion how to eradicate them, any real mature advice would be greatly appreciated. Yeah, here's some advice. You shouldn't have stayed with her, okay? All right, even no matter how sorry she claimed to be and all that, best to walk away and start over. Because I'm guessing the guy can't be that old, because he said he'd been married to her like 10 or 11 years. I would guess they probably got married in their 20s, maybe 30s. So he's probably in his late 30s or maybe early 40s, who knows? He's got a whole life to live, and he could have learn some things the hard way and start over. But instead, he's with her, and he's getting the bare minimum in the sack, and he's always going to be plagued by these haunting thoughts and feelings about this whole thing. Sometimes it's better to just and move on. But some people got to learn the hard way. Some people just do not want to see reality things as they are. And she got away pretty much scot-free with that very little, whatever the word you want to call it. I can't think of the word right now, but you know what I mean. So, but anyhow, guys, that's a perfect example of showing you in this story of how the women settle for the nice guys and they never get the same type of treatment to the guys they really want. How it's so important to pay attention to the red flags, which the guy did. I'll give him credit there. He knew something was going on and he investigated, so good for him there. And also how the guys the women really want and who they have to compete for, they're really going to get all the extra attention and loving, but the guys that they don't see very much as a prize, bare minimum. Just to let you know that. So for you guys that think that all of a sudden you're in your 30s and getting a lot of attention from young women or just women in general that wouldn't pay attention to you when you were younger, but nothing about you has really changed, that's because they're looking to settle. That's it. And so any special treatment you think you're getting now or will get later on if you put a ring on her finger, think again. So anyhow, guys, that is it for today. Be sure to comment down below. Let me know what you think about this. And be sure to like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe. And I'll catch you next time.